Hi everyone, welcome to the Platform Conference 2025. I'm Naresh Batthula, currently working as a Principal Developer Advocate at DraftKings. Today, I'll be sharing a journey towards unified observability and how teams are moving towards unified observability, making things simpler by using fewer tools and cutting the costs and getting the better insights with the help of AI. So here is the agenda we're going to discuss. We will cover today. We'll start with a short introduction and then move on to current state of observability, what gaps exist, why many teams struggle with disconnected tools. From there, we will talk about financial impact of this fragmentation and introduce the three core pillars of observability like metrics, logs, and traces. Next, we will look at the vision, what it could look like if everything worked together and how different teams from executives to developers can benefit from unified observability with a context. We'll also explore how AI can supercharge these insights through smart detection, prediction, and filtering with a human oversight. Finally, we will wrap up with some actionable next steps so that you can take to get started on your own unified observability journey. So let's begin with the core issue. Across the industry, observability is fragmented. Right? Teams use multiple observability tools like Grafana, Prometheus, InfluxDB, Splunk, Dynatrace, New Relic, etc. And often they rely on siloed front-end monitoring tools. This tool, these many tools across the company will increase the operational complexity and cost. And also, this disconnected landscape makes it hard to correlate the signals between logs, traces, and metrics, which will eventually increase MTTR and MTTD. Let's discuss about an example. Imagine an SRE is investigating an incident. They start in with Prometheus to look at the CPU metrics. Then they have to jump in Grafana for dashboards and switch over to Tempo for traces. And finally, they have to open a Datadog or Elasticsearch to look at the logs. Each tool shows part of the story, but there is no single narrative. Right? This delays resolution and leads to frustration. Right? Think about it like this: like one team might use open telemetry to collect the data while other team uses other tools or their own custom setup. Because they are using different method, it's really hard to compare how their services are being instrumented and how they are doing it. This slows down the problem solving and makes it really hard to get the full value of observability. And also, let's discuss about the developer point of view. Right? A developer debugging a failed checkout flow in a microservice world, they have to, like in the microservice world, you might have like 20 to probably 10 to 20 different services doing the business functionality, right? Or doing the checkout business functionality, right? They have to look at the metrics and then they have to jump onto the logs to see the error, and but the logs might be stored in one place, metrics might be stored in one place, right? And then sometimes the traces might not be collected at all if the teams were not instrumented their application, right? Without with this unified timeline, right, it takes hours to stitch in critical instance, right? In other cases where I've seen, teams uses both Datadog and New Relic for overlapping purposes, right? Paying for both same functionality twice. This kind of a redundancy adds up quickly to both cost and cognitive load, right? The unified observability really aims to eliminate this inefficiency by centralizing it, building the centralized data pipeline, and with that data pipeline, you can actually correlate the signals so that like teams can spend more time on solving and less time for searching the things. So, what is now? Let's discuss about how these fragmented tools are impacting the financials of the company. Right, the teams across the industry are like overspending on observability by large margin, like 10 to 20%, instead of like recommended 5 to 10%. And that's a huge difference. And now consider the vendor overlap. Right, as I mentioned earlier, it's not uncommon to find teams using multiple platforms like Datadog, New Relic, Elasticsearch. for nearly identical functionality. These three tools can support storing the logs, right? That can mean like paying 2 to 3 times more than what is really required. And then there is an infrastructure, right? You need to build a duplicate pipelines, you need to have a redundant data storage, and non-standard data ingestion can eat up system resources, which is leading to 30% or more waste, right? Now let's talk about the three core pillars of unified observability, right? To solve this problem, whatever we have discussed till now, we need to understand and foundation building blocks like metrics, logs, and traces, right? Metrics can help us track how our systems are performing in real time. For example, CPU usage, memory usage, number of requests, latencies, and how long the request takes, right? The logs record what's really happening behind the scenes, like errors or important events, and they are often mapped with the um, timestamp. And I see like most of the times developer check the logs at the first thing. Traces connect all these pieces by showing how the request moves through a different service in the system, helping us find where the real slowdowns or failures happen. Think about like you are debugging an issue that's spread across 20 different systems. That's where the traces comes into the picture. These traces part these three parts like metrics, logs, and traces are most powerful when they are used together, and if they live in different tools with no shared tags and formats, it's really hard to connect the dots. It's like trying to read one story split between three books, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? It's the same case with having metrics, logs, and traces placed in different tools will not give a efficient results, right? The unified observability puts everything in one place so that we have a full clear picture, right? So what is the vision of unified observability, right? So in with the unified observability, you will be able to get a single pane of glass, like the single pane of glass that gives you access to all your telemetry, logs, metrics, and traces, tagged consistently for your visualization purpose. Like now we are talking about consistency, like how you achieve it. There should be a common instrumentation standard, shared data pipelines, and then shared dashboards across the company, right? When you have this instrumentation standard followed across the company, right, you're gonna have a easy way to find the issue, and then all the company will talk the same language, right? The unified observability upgrade, right? It's not just a tooling upgrade, right? It's a mindset. It changes how teams really work, how incidents are resolved, and then how the costs are managed. Like instead of having five different tools, you just have one tool or two tools to manage your entire observability infrastructure. It's a lower cost to the company, right? And also which will help eventually get the faster insights from the data that you have, and it's also easily scalable, right? Let's talk about the context, right? How the unified observability helps everyone but in different ways. Let's talk about the executives, right? For them it brings a high level view. They can quickly spot the trends in the system performance, right? Identifying the rising infrastructure costs, or see which business services need more attention. For example, let's say a dashboard might highlight increased latency in a high revenue product area, right? That will help them guide a better investment decisions. For SRE, it means fewer roadblocks. When resolving incident with a complete request traces and consistency tagging, they can quickly identify the bottlenecks and fix the issues without jumping across tools. Like say an alert comes in for a slow checkout process, an SRE can trace the request from front end to back end and pinpoint where the slowdown happens. For developers, it closes the feedback loop. Let's say when you release a code for a particular feature, they can really monitor the logs, metrics, and traces in one place, right, to catch the performance issues, right? If a new feature causes a spike in error log, right, developers can trace it back to commit and fix it faster, right? So it's not just an idea. Unified observability is not just an idea, right? It's about making sure everyone can use it in a context to make better decisions and move much faster. So now let's talk about like One, let's say we unify the observability data, how we can unlock the potential of AI can help detect anomalies faster by learning the baselines across metrics, logs, and traces. For example, it might notice when a latency consistency spikes every day around 3 p.m. or like 3 a.m. If no one is flagged with a human oversight, these alerts can become a meaningful but not noisy, right? And coming to the predictive analytics, right? If error rate gradually rise every Monday morning during traffic spike, sorry, AI can detect the pattern and then flag it in advance so that the engineering teams can act upon and fix the issue even before customer notices it, right? And finally, smart filtering. I like this feature a lot. Instead of like drowning in an alert flood, right? If AI can group all these related issues like multiple errors from the same service and prioritize what matters most. For example, let's say you have 50 alerts come from one root cause, right? AI can bundle them together so teams can get a clear signal instead of 50 noisy ones. Looking at a 50 noisy alerts, they can focus on one issue at a time connected to our root cause, and then they fix the issue much faster, right? Now let's say you decide uh, to try a unified observability journey, right? Here is the roadmap to unified observability. Step one: map what you already have, right? What tools you use, and then where you have an overlap and where the data is really linked. Like identify them and then try to find one or two tool to build a unified observability by bringing the data together, right? And then second and most important thing is like you have to agree on shared standard instrumentation guidelines, right? For how teams to collect and tag the data. This helps everyone speak the same language when it comes to monitoring and troubleshooting, as I mentioned earlier, right? And three, like once you identify and then like identify a tool and bring all your data together, build a unified dashboard that brings the data together, and so that let teams explore how this shared view can make their work faster and easier. And finally, implement AI ops responsibly and enable the predictive analytics and smart alerts. But please make sure to have a human validation in the loop. AI can hallucinate a lot, right? So finally, what I would like to say, unified observability isn't a one-click transformation, but it's a journey worth taking, right? So thanks for watching, and I hope this gave you a clarity on where observability is heading and why unifying your approach is key to staying efficient and proactive. Thank you so much.